But according to you this morning, what's the first thing you said? The Leafs are blowing it. The Leafs are blowing it. Now they when they win, they lose. When they lose, they lose. Or when they lose, they win.
But
which one is it?
So
it's bizarre. They had the last pick or the last place, the 20%
locked up.
Yeah, and then now it's all of a sudden today it's Edmonton, Toronto, and Vancouver all tied. So talk about the
Winnipeg's
Leafs
in the mix,
right? And Columbus. So you look at it and you say, what's Jimmy Benning and Trevor Linden thinking about when they stood up 2 years ago when they were hired and say we're going to rebuild on the fly, and today they could pick first overall. I mean, and then you're thinking, how good would that be for them?
Is that not great for them?
Well, I think it's great if they get Matthews and Bo Horvat as your number 1-2. All of a sudden, the look of your group can change dramatically. So, and maybe that's what they should have stood up and said 2 years ago. We're gonna tear this apart.
Not in that market.
But they didn't say that. They said we're going to rebuild on the fly, and yet still, none of us really picked Vancouver to make the playoffs for sure this year. But nobody picked us
to finish 30th.
Not a chance. Not a chance. So tough injuries and lots of kids, but still, nobody would have expected that.
What do you make from of Nazem Kadri's eventful last week? From the coach having his back to going out, scoring a hat trick last night, and really has had one of the best stretches that you've seen out of him during the course of his career.
Yeah, and the numbers will probably put him in the range where he's been in the past, and that's in that 50, 55-point range. He won't quite get there unless he just goes on a complete tear the last half dozen games. But, I mean, we've seen this before. We've seen that skill. We've seen his ability to put the puck in the net. Ultimately, I think what it truly comes down to, and this is not just for Kadri, but anyone else on a team that's sitting at the bottom of the league, is not so much the players they are now, but where do you envision them when you hope that the team can contend eventually for a Stanley Cup? And I will say this, I mean, with what you've seen out of Kadri, does that now all of a sudden make him a number one centerman in the NHL? And more importantly, is it your vision that he's a number one centerman on a Stanley Cup contending team?
No, it doesn't for me.
Exactly.
But I'll tell you what it does.
So that kind of puts things still in perspective.
But what it does for me is it really solidifies him
as a number two,
as a really good number two. And you know what? That's still pretty valuable in the league. A really good number two. I mean, does he become as valuable to the Toronto Maple Leafs as Turris is to Ottawa? Is he that caliber? I think the different type of player, I know, but pretty close from a contribution.
But how different is your evaluation of him, perception of him today compared to the start of the season and training camp?
Much better, but it started to really come around. I've always kind of liked him as a player. I always thought he was a number two guy. I like the fact that all year long he's gone head to head with the other team's best players. I like the fact that he's had a lot of chances and didn't score. At least he was getting the chances, and now they're starting to go in for him a little bit. Yeah. I don't know that he's playing any different.
Well, the skill.
So I think it's been a good growth year for him.
They've gotten more skill in the lineup. They're a lot more skilled than they were at the beginning of the year. But
he's been playing with pretty skilled guys all year, hasn't he?
Oh, no.
He played with Van Riemsdyk and Komarev a lot, didn't he? So I mean, he has been with some, But hey, I like Kadri. If his attitude and all the little things that he went through last year growing up, if they grow like his game is growing,
and if
he's got a chance to be a good player.
For me, he's got tremendous skill and he's relied on that skill, but he still doesn't have the reputation for a guy that pushes himself off the ice. And for me, and Babcock's talked about this, is where's his commitment to get stronger, to go to the next level.
And that's where you hope you see the progress,
that's
the
where
evolution
you hope,
of him.
Or will he always be that guy that just relies on his God-given talents?
So we're doing Ottawa tonight. and we've had a lot of conversation the last couple of days in the prep about Zibanejad. Who would you rather have, Zibanejad or a Kadri? Both high picks in the draft. If I'm not mistaken, probably both of them right around that 7 spot in the draft, and both of them important guys for the battle of Ontario teams, that they develop into important guys.